Welcome to episode 4 of Rail Talk. I know we're on a roll now because I had to think to remember what episode this was. Very easy to do in the first 2 or 3 episodes. My name is Joe Bianca. I'm this ownership advisor for West Point Thoroughbreds. I'm going to be at Del Mar this week, which I'm very, very excited about. But it's unfortunate because I'm going to miss the party of the summer. Patty Wolf and family's summer lawn party hosted by the Wolves up in Connecticut this Saturday. I know John's going to be there. He's going to bring his fireworks. He's going to bring the Boone's Farm. And I'm just sorry to be missing it, John.
Jonathan Green, general manager of DJ Stable. And Joe, I'm glad you didn't give like her home address and other pertinent information for our fans to show up, because that would.
I was going to. As soon as you threw it back to me, I was going to say it's at, and this is going to get beeped out, on road, Connecticut 3. You can just blank all of that out. But John knows where to go.
And we can put her cell number right here. Can we put her cell number at the bottom? So that way people, I mean, I know it's on a lot of bathroom walls, but that's a whole different story.
Oh.
You want to DM all the people I didn't invite to?
And Joe Bianca, before we start this show, before we start episode 4, I have a serious bone to pick with you, and I'm serious about this. I'm not joking around like I usually do. I got an email last night from one of our sponsors who said, quote, "Anyone who can work continuously with Jonathan Green deserves the right to name a horse. Give Joe what he wants." That's exactly what I got. It was like God, Len, and then everyone else. And Len sent me an email last night saying, make sure that my prodigal son, Joe Bianca, gets a chance to name a horse. So through the magic of, Len Green from the Green Group, we have come up with not 1, not 2, but 3 colts, Joe Bianca, that could have the name Change at Jamaica. We saved the name Change at Jamaica. And what I thought we would do is we're going to use your name, but we're going to let our listeners come up with which of the 3 horses should be named Change at Jamaica. What do you think?
I love it. No, it's a way to get the listeners involved, but not strip me of the right to my name for having worked with you for so long.
Exactly. And there's no question that you deserve it. So there's going to be 3 colts. There's an Entice colt, there's a Tom's d'Etat colt, and there's a Munnings colt. And, Patty and her crew will put up all the pedigrees. And basically, we want your votes. We need your votes. We need for you to retweet it. And we're basically going to take the poll. The rules will be on Twitter. We're going to take the poll, see what comes up with. And next week, we're going to announce who the winning horse is, who the very famous colt is going to be named Change at Jamaica.
Yes, sir. I mean, I'm so appreciative of that. All kidding aside, even though I am the favorite son of the Green family at this point, I think it's not really up for debate anymore. I'm super grateful. What's that?
It's a low bar.
I ask for so little of Len, relatively speaking. I can't help but be the favorite son. Just an occasional private jet ride. That's it. I'm a humble guy, But Len is the man, and so the Green Group is the place to go. If you're a horse owner, trainer, anybody who works in this industry, and you want somebody to help you save money on taxes, Len is the guy. The Green Group is the firm. John Green, he filters in and out. How much he's really involved in your taxes, and that's probably a good thing if he's not too deeply involved. But the firm is as legit and has as much expertise as anybody in this industry. They have over 800 clients in the business. That number just keeps on growing. The testimonials are just through the roof. You can go on greenco.com and read some of them, or you just talk to anybody. Talk to anybody who knows anything in this industry, and they'll tell you, at tax time, if the Green Group doesn't have your back, you're probably losing money, but you're probably at least definitely not saving as much money as you could. So shout out to the Green Group, shout out to Len, and go vote. Go vote, see which horse you would like to be named my beautiful name, Change at Jamaica, which hits me in my roots, down to my marrow. I love it so much. And hopefully, maybe 2-year-old colt or a yearling colt 2 years from now, might see that horse in the Haskell, which the Haskell took place this past Saturday at Monmouth Park. Yes, Johnny,
that's why you're such a pro.
You inspired me with your segue last week. That one wasn't quite as smooth, but I got to step up my game there. But it's a wonderful day at Monmouth. And if you haven't been to Monmouth Park, you 1000% gotta go. And it gets overshadowed a little bit, I think, in the summer by Saratoga, with good reason. Saratoga is, the marquee race meet in the country, but Monmouth is like a mini version of Saratoga. It's right by the beach, so it's not as humid as Saratoga. That's one thing it's got going for it, but it's got a really die-hard racing supportive public and community. And I always remember, before we get into the race, which we will, promise, I always remember riding down on the New Jersey Transit to my old job at the TDN in Red Bank. And I would be on the train with people with their coolers and just so excited to get down to Monmouth Park. And I was about to clock in for like a 10-hour day. And I love my job. I'm very passionate about racing, so it wasn't that big of a deal. But I was just like, God, I want to be there. I just want to be chilling, listening to Frank Sinatra at the end of the day. It's a special, special place. And I'm glad. It seemed like it was a little touch and go there for a little while with Monmouth. They had some purse cuts. I think it's back to where it should be in the summer racing calendar. And it was a feel good result with Go Rocket Ride winning for Richard Mandella. I don't know about you, John, but I thought Arabian Night was one of the most overbet horses you ever seen. See, I thought he was the other horse. John, what's the horse who won the Woody Stevens? You know his name? Neither of us.
Wait, are we supposed to be doing a racing show and still know who won the other big stage?
Professionals here, dude. Like, this is what I mean. Like, we're going to start doing more prep for the blooper reel than we are for the actual show. Who's the Baffert horse that won the Woody Stevens? I'm going to look it up right quick.
All right.
2023 Woody Stevens. Arabian Lion. Okay, in my defense, it's Arabian Lion and Arabian Night. It's not as if they're two completely named. So I thought, tuning into that race, Arabian Lion is the even money favorite. I get it. This is a horse, Arabian Night, who hadn't been seen in 6 months. And Mage, the Derby winner, was over 4-1. And I don't know how you felt, John, but Arabian Night, I thought was a little bit rank early on, thought made it ripe for a closer, but instead, one of the speed horses comes back and re-breaks and wins the race. John, what were your impressions on the Haskell?
Certainly a lot of things you said, Joe. Arabian Night, that was such a difficult ask for that horse to step up not only in quality to a Grade 1 race, but fly halfway across the country and after a big long layoff be expected to run a winning race at even money, which was crazy. Johnny Velasquez at the gate at the break had the horse in the center of the track. He did let the cheap speed kind of go out there and sat off it. But he didn't give Arabian Night, in my opinion, a chance to relax. The splits were basically 22-4, 24, and 24-3. And it was in that period of time between the half mile and 6 furlongs that Arabian Night really took off. And again, being in the center of the racetrack, he ran a lot more distance than the other horses did. That being said, I couldn't be happier for the connections of Go Rocket Ride. And I've never met Richard Mandella, but I've only heard good things about him. I've only met Mike Smith occasionally, but again, very respected. And, I'm so happy for Pin Oak, especially because, their matriarch, Mrs. Abercrombie, passed away, and they're in the process of kind of unrolling that dynasty that they put together. But for so many years, Joe, I saw the Pin Oak colors. And whenever I'd go through a catalog, at a Fasig-Tipton catalog, I would always be fascinated with just how strong the female families were in the Pin Oak dynasty. And that's really what it was. So I'm sure that Mrs. A was looking down from heaven as Go Rocket Ride hit the wire first. And I just couldn't be happier for it. And how about the fact that I don't know if I'd use the term re-break, because to me, when a horse re-breaks, that to me, that's nefarious. It means that something was going on. But what he did was he fought off Mage. He fought off the Kentucky Derby winner, in my mind, who had put a nose in front at one point early on in the stretch. So to me, Go Rocket Ride had every reason to pack it in. But the son of a gun, he rode hard and he wanted that race. And he put away everybody. And again, hats off to Richard Mandella and his crew for having Go Rocket Ride ready to run and took on a couple of Goliaths.
Yeah, I mean, Go Rocket Ride ran great. I get what you're saying about the re-breaking thing, but I think you just got to watch my eyes. Because if I say the horse re-broke and I just do one of these.
That's subtle.
Do like one of the eye bulges, like the horse re-broke. Right, but I didn't do that. with Richard
No.
Mandella because he's a clean guy and he does things the right way. But
Right.
it does happen sometimes. And I think it was less the horse re-breaking and more that the other speed quit and he was able to turn back the closer in Mage, who I think was probably a little short coming back from the Preakness, and this being a clear prep race for the Travers. Go Rocket Ride is a great training job, by the way, too.
Right.
I mean, a horse that was second in the San Felipe after a really big, well-regarded maiden win. Took some time, took off of the Derby Trail, came back, gave him the race in the Affirmed at Santa Anita. Nice little kind of little ramp up to the Haskell. And now he's going to go to the Pacific Classic, which is always so interesting to me when 3-year-olds take on elders in the Pacific Classic rather than go to the Travers. And I think he's right. I think this is a smart idea because I don't think you're going to get a full gate in the Pacific Classic. And what older horses are you scared of right now in that division? Like, not that there's some king 3-year-old that you have to be running scared of, but I think it's going to be 11, 12 horses in the Travers, you know, having to ship across the country again. Why not stay home, running $1 million race? And then if you beat elders, then you can start talking about champion 3-year-old, maybe even horse of the year if he has a big springboard after that. I think it makes all the sense in the world. John, what do you think?
I think this is a resume builder, Joe. I think you're exactly right, because if you look at the 3-year-old crop, there's no leader at the halfway through the gate at this point. There's nobody. I find it hard pressed for you to name who is the leader going to the clubhouse. That's the word I was looking for. Yeah. At this point in time as a 3-year-old. So if this horse can go out there and beat older horses, that really stamps him. And his past performances and his resume to become the leader for the 3-year-old champion. Yeah,
no, he's trying to do something extraordinary, even though it might end up being a similar spot or maybe even an easier spot than the Travers would be. He's smart, obviously a very smart guy who's won a ton of awards, and he knows what he's doing with this horse, as he proved over the weekend. One other horse I wanted to mention. I was thinking about doing this, but I think we kind of embarrassed ourselves by not remembering Arabian Lion before, but I was going to use this as an example of like the weakness of the older male division. I would say let's go through some of the big handicap races so far this year. You tell me who won them, because do you remember who won the Stephen Foster? That was a couple weeks ago.
No,
it's West Bull Power, because I actually like that horse. I set you up, John. Set John up.
No, Joe, I don't care. If my horse isn't in the race, I don't really care.
Yeah,
I watch it because I like the industry, but it's tough.
It's just a general point about the weakness of the older male division. It's just not something that really captures the imagination, at least not as we're sitting here on July 24th. One other horse I wanted to mention from this past weekend. It wasn't an exciting betting race by any stretch of the imagination, but Nest coming back and winning the Chuvie. Only a 4-horse field, but there was another legitimate championship caliber filly in the race in Clairiere, just off a grade 1 win, 2 grade 1 wins actually, in the Apple Blossom and the Ogden Phipps. And Nest got a little bit of a
just to interrupt you for a second. I think she won 2 grade 1s.
Oh, yeah. John's never gonna let that go. I didn't listen to him that one time, just that once. I didn't listen to him, and now he's back-to-back grade 1 winner. And Nest got the better of the trips because only 4-horse field. You want to have more speed in those situations. I thought Joelle had to use Clairiere a little bit early, and I thought she ran a winning race too because she never quit. She was still closing down the stretch, but they came home very fast. But Nest is a really exciting filly. And I thought she kind of petered out towards the end of last year. She was 4th in the distaff, but she had a monster 3-year-old season. Obviously, she was the champion. What did you think of Nest's return on Sunday, John?
I was so impressed with coming off an 8-month layoff, 8+ months, and to run such a big race in the Chuvie. And you can say anything you want. You can say, well, she came back in a grade 2, not a grade 1. But you know what? It wasn't like there wasn't any talent in that race. I mean, there were definitely some good horses there. You already mentioned one. I'm so excited to see Nest come back. I'm a big Curlin fan. He's too expensive for us to breed to. We can't really afford a lot of his progeny. But you have to respect the fact that Curlin just continues to throw out champions, and they run as 3-year-olds and as 4-year-olds, and if the owners want at that point, even older. So they last, and it's just so nice to see Nest, who as you mentioned, is a champion. But she's so royally bred that you know, as a purist, I want a horse like that to continue to race. So I was very excited to see her come off the layoff and win so impressively. And again, you got to give Pletcher credit, because 8 months is a long time. That's a long time to get a horse back. And like we've seen before, sometimes fillies just never come back to their, you know, to their earlier heights in their careers.
Yeah, no, and hopefully she can keep it together for the second half of the year, have a big second half. She was very exciting. Also very exciting, as we mentioned, is Go Rocket Ride. And he's a FASIG grad. It was a big weekend for FASIG grads. Rail Talk is proudly sponsored by FASIG Tipton, of course. And we're going to be up at Saratoga next Friday, recording an on-scene show at the FASIG Tipton Sales Pavilion, obviously in advance of the Saratoga sale and the Saratoga New York bred sale. Two huge pairs of dates on the calendar, on the sales calendar, particularly the select yearling sale. So we're looking forward to that next Friday. We'll be recording, I think, about around lunchtime. We don't know exactly the time yet. We'll have some special guests. We're going to be posted up over there. So if you're around, come say hello. But it was a big Saturday at Haskell, at Monmouth Park in particular, for FASIG grads. I mean, Go Rocket Ride, FASIG grad. I think we also had the United Nations winner, Therapist, also a FASIG grad. I think we had one or two others in there as well. Who else do we have? Oh, yeah, we had Consumer Spending, who won the Matchmaker Stakes, also a FASIG Tipton grad. So, you know, I mean, you know, I didn't need me to sing the praises of FASIG Tipton, but they have, I think the diversity of their sales, yearlings, 2-year-olds, ready-made horses, has set a lot of people up for success by shopping their sales. And they do obviously an incredible job with the buyers, with the owners, with the breeders, with the consigners. You know, it's a total class operation, and we're so excited to be up there for the show. We're so excited for the sale coming up, and I'm stoked to be a little bit behind the curtain and get to experience that, you know, up close and personal, John.
And Joe, we're going to have, maybe we should start spilling who's going to be some of the guests, but from FASIG, we're going to have Anna Seitz, who is you know, instrumental as far as trying to recruit horses to come into the sales. A lifelong you know, horsewoman and a Jersey. She's a Jersey bred. I don't know if you realize that she's a Jersey bred. And Boyd Browning, who is just the mad scientist behind all of FASIG's you know, all their exploits and all their successes. They're both going to be coming in, and we may even have a Mark Taylor from TaylorMade. We may have a Mark Taylor sighting as well. I don't want to get too excited about that, because he usually brings crowds and crowds of groupies. So we have to be really careful about that. But, you know, Mark Taylor of TaylorMade, and I think TaylorMade is poised for success for this upcoming FASIG Select sale.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk a little bit about TaylorMade, because Go Rocket Ride, didn't you say, is a TaylorMade graduate?
Born, raised, and consigned by TaylorMade. So you can't do much better than that, than have the Haskell winner. You know, come in and you know, basically for the first year of his life, only ate TaylorMade grass and only stayed in TaylorMade barns. And you know, if you want to find the top horses, that's where you start.
Yeah, and Rail Talk is obviously proudly sponsored by TaylorMade. And I think that's what's interesting, is that you said they were bred, raised by TaylorMade. I think they're one of the only consignor operations that have the reach and have the know-how to be able to have that soup to nuts approach, where they can not only sell horses, but they can breed and raise horses as well. So they know exactly what they're talking about. They didn't just get the horse a couple months ago, put them out on a farm. They've seen this horse basically from the jump. They know them inside and out. And that's the kind of thing that builds trust in the industry. When you can speak knowledgeably about a horse from start to finish, TaylorMade does a great job of that. And of course, they're going to have a powerhouse consignment at the FASIG Tipton Saratoga sale, which we'll be up there for next weekend. We are beyond thrilled to welcome the newest guest to the Rail Talk podcast, one of my favorite people in racing, and a racing nomad who has reached the pinnacle, calling races now at Saratoga. Frank Miramati, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Joe and John. I'm very excited.
We're so stoked to have you on. And so I kind of wanted to ask a little bit about your journey, because you are a racing nomad. You've called races all over the place. I rarely ever remember you staying in one place for more than 1 or 2 years. Now you made it to Saratoga. How has this first Saratoga summer been so far, comparatively to the rest of your racing calling career?
Well, I mean, this is Saratoga Racecourse, so it's certainly a big challenge and an incredible honor. As you know, my dream job was always Santa Anita Park because that to me is the place I grew up. I'm a Los Angeles native, born and raised. Trevor Denman's my idol. And so, in my dream world, if I could ever have replaced him after he retired, it would have been the perfect story. It almost happened that way. There was a little bit of a bump in that road, but, I've been there for 5 years now. And so certainly as far as I'm concerned, I have exceeded my wildest dreams and expectations, particularly since I had the privilege of calling the Breeders' Cup on track in 2019. I think that was the cherry on top. And if I would have, taken the mic and dropped it right after the Breeders' Cup Classic, when I had the opportunity to call Vino Rosso, I don't script calls. I don't, plan things in advance. But I told myself, if Vino Rosso wins, I'm going to pay homage to my late father in a subtle manner. And so I said like father, like son, because of course his daddy, Curlin, had won the Breeders' Cup Classic. So when I said that after a couple of great days, I was so happy and just blessed and grateful that was it. I didn't need anything more from the standpoint of fulfillment. The opportunity at Saratoga presented itself because at the end of 2017, I made the decision that I would give up my job at Golden Gate Fields to work part-time at Aqueduct. That opportunity presented itself to share the meet with John Embrial, and I had to take it. It was based on a story that I won't bore you with, but there was a gentleman in my life when I was a young kid that explained to me the importance of seizing opportunities and that your ceiling one place becomes your ground at the next. And I wish he was alive, the great Oscar Katz, former executive with CBS and Desilu Studios, because this followed his script to a T. And I wish I could be sharing that moment with him, as well as my dad, who I lost in 97.
And Frank, I had the pleasure of listening to so many of your calls at Monmouth Park at our home racetrack. And it was fun, whether it was a $5,000 claimer or a stake race. You made it so the winner was utmost importance. And I know walking into the winner's circle, it was always great to hear your call. Do you take certain aspects of calls like from previous announcers and maybe the guys you mentioned, Dedman and Keith Jones from Parks? Are there certain guys that you definitely take some thoughts from?
I would say absolutely. I basically studied track announcers since I was a little kid, growing up in Southern California. To me, it was the late great Harry Henson with his gravelly voice at Hollywood Park and Del Mar, and then of course the legendary Dave Johnson, whose voice, look. When you're an announcer, the best thing you could possibly have is a voice. Dave Johnson's announcements sounded like they were coming out in Dolby sound at Santa Anita. And I remember vividly some of his allowance race calls, maiden race calls, stakes race calls. And so I grew up under that umbrella of Harry Henson, Dave Johnson, and Trevor Denman were the main guys in my life. And then, of course, with national broadcast, when I was in high school, they had the Breeders' Cup for the first time. I was there at Hollywood Park, and I started becoming familiar with the calls of Tom Durkin. So in coming to New York, the one thing I would say from the standpoint of listening to others, some people listen to music. Some people, just to kind of get pumped up for something, right? You're on your way. I listened to a ton of Tom Durkin calls because I know that his cadence and his style was something that the New York fans have adored, and the whole world had the privilege of hearing him on the national stages for his Triple Crown and Breeders' Cup work. John Embrial is a great voice, a legendary voice with New York tone, a true New Yorker that gives a simple, no-nonsense race call. And there have been many others that I've listened to over the years because I didn't have a whole lot of interest as a kid. I liked horse racing, so I listened to track announcers. I learned how to imitate people. My dad took me to the track every weekend. I started imitating track announcers. So to answer your question, John, there are many of them. And I think that what can be done has been done in race calling. And so I don't want to try to reinvent the wheel, but at the same time, I think my cadence is a little different in New York. And part of that is because of the fractions. I don't give the fractions in California. I'm not a big fan of giving the fractions anywhere. I think it's a highly overrated bit of information because to me, if I'm watching a race and let's say I want a certain horse who's a speed horse to win, if he's going 21-4 by himself, or he's going 22-2 and there are 3 across the track, I'll take the 21-4 by himself. So I think some of that stuff gets over dramatized. In the end, it's about how they're doing it as opposed to how fast they're doing it. At least that's the way I've always learned and I've always watched races. But I believe that, I've shown respect to the New York audience because they like the splits. And so I think that's something that was adjusted immediately. When I first came to New York to work with Johnny I asked him about that. And he said, kiddo, do whatever makes you comfortable. And in the end, I just felt the right thing to do was the fractions. The other thing about the fractions that people may not understand, the fractions make you look away from the race, which is not an ideal situation. Right. You want to be watching the race as a play-by-play broadcaster. But I'm happy to adjust. And I think, believe it or not, it might actually help my call because it slows me down a little bit. And so therefore, I might not get hyped up before it's time. It's a fine line, and I think it's actually okay, and I'm enjoying it a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it's important context, and I think that's one of the things that's helped you stick around and raise to so many new levels is your ability to adjust to the population, to the racetrack. It's interesting. I think about this sometimes about how there aren't that many iconic play-by-play radio and TV broadcasters anymore. Like back in the day, every town, every team had its own like signature broadcaster. Now it's like, now that Vin Scully's gone, it's like maybe Joe Buck on TV, John Sterling on the radio. But people remember race callers, and people are very fixated on race callers. And it's in a way, it's more of a high pressure position, even though it's relatively a smaller audience. How much does that affect you? I mean, how much have you thought about that, about how it's still such an important position in this business, and just how that's kind of a little bit of an anachronism and a beautiful one, I think?
I think it's great because people want to remember those moments. I mean, how many calls do you remember from being a kid? You remember those tremendous moments, and it's based on the audio and the visual. You're watching the race and you're hearing the call, and there have been so many amazing calls over the years. And look, I think one of the other things is, I think whatever generation you talk about, you're oftentimes going to reference, quote unquote, the good old days. And later on, there will be kids that'll be, there'll be adults that'll be talking about these days as the good old days. But I think a lot of that is not just that things were quote unquote better or places were more fun or this or that, but it's also a reflection back on your past when you were younger. And no matter who you are, chances are you had a little bit less stress in your life. You were happier as a kid, and you didn't have some of the things affecting your mind and your life that you have to deal with as you get older. And so when you look back in time, you remember those great calls. And I'm very conscious of trying to deliver. I think that I've tried to use this expression in recent years, that I really believe the job of a track announcer is to celebrate winners, to focus on the winner, because it's about the winning connections. And in the end, the winner is all everyone remembers. And in any Breeders' Cup Classic, you talk about the two of them that come for the wire together. You remember the one who won it by a nose. You remember Rags to Riches in the Belmont. These are the things that come to your mind. And so in the end, it's about celebrating the winner, because ultimately those are the people that are going to watch that replay over and over again. And so if a horse is getting tired late, and then all of a sudden they barely hold on, I try my best not to say staggers home, because I don't want everyone at home watching with great anticipation to see their replay and then end up, having a call that didn't make them feel good. My job is to celebrate, and that's what I do every day.
Frank, one of the things that we like doing here is naming horses. Out of the tens of thousands of horses that of names that you've gone over, are there a couple of them that stand out? I mean, not just the top ones like Vina Rosso and horses like that, but are there ones that like stick in your mind that were like kind of unique or funny?
That I've called?
Yeah.
One of the toughest was a horse for Caesar Kimmel way back when I was at Hialeah, called Flat Fleet Feet. Try to say that 10 times in a row. Yeah. And it was maybe my first or second year at Hialeah, whatever. It was early on in my career. I was not amused to see that name in there because it was a tongue twister.
And that was a nice horse. That was a nice horse.
Point, we actually have a 2-year-old colt, Street Sense colt. Third dam is Flat Fleet Feet. And it took me a bunch of times to figure out how to say it.
She was good. She was good. I think she won the Poinciana Breeders' Cup Handicap at Hialeah. She certainly won whatever that race was back then. I got to call that, and it was a lot of fun. I don't know about specific names off the top of my head that I could think of for you, but specific horses I certainly can. I called Tiz Now as my first Grade 1 call at Louisiana Downs in 2000. It was a call on ESPN. And so certainly I was a little bit nervous about that moment. And I remember they gave me an IFB. And for those who don't know what an IFB is, it's a little thing you put in your ear to listen to the producer. And I'll always remember when they went to the gate, they said, they explained to me how they're going to throw the race to me, et cetera, et cetera. And all of a sudden, like the fourth horse out of 6 went in the gate. And I remember the producer at the time, I think it was Tom Dawson, I'm pretty sure that he said, roll the commendable piece. And I'm thinking the commendable piece, we got 2 horses left to load. And I took that IFB and I threw it across the room because that was the end of me wanting to hear anything. I was trembling up there in the booth. And it's a moment that stands in time. I remember just hearing like the commendable piece. Am I watching something different? But they did. They were able to quickly roll it because that's TV. And then we did it. And I was very happy with that call because I called Tiznow a superstar in the making. I actually was at dinner earlier that week at the great Olive Street Bistro, which is no longer there, but it was my favorite hangout in Shreveport when I was calling at Louisiana Downs. And I remember telling everybody how much I loved Commendable in that race, and I thought he was the right horse. And typically I'll go for the more lightly raced up-and-comer. When they came on the track for the Super Derby and I saw that big beast Tiznow, I said, oh boy, this Commendable might be in for a run for his money. And he turned in a track record performance. I remember being nervous when I said a superstar in the making, and then I saw the time on the board and he had just shattered the track record at Louisiana Downs. So I felt a little better about it because early on in my career, Trevor Denman told me to be careful with superlatives. I was working on a show at Santa Anita. I was filling in for Jay Privman on a show that they had on the local Fox affiliates back then, and Prime Timber ran in the last race. And I went on and on about what a good horse he was. And afterward, I was talking to Trevor. He was giving me feedback. And he just said, always remember to be very careful with superlatives when you give them, because it's easy to say the word great or real good. I don't think I called him great, but he was just trying to like teach me early on to temper my enthusiasm. Not everything is great. Not everything is spectacular. Obviously, Prime Timber turned into a pretty good horse, but it's the same type of thing. You got to watch what you say as an announcer. You don't want to get carried away. Even though you also want to make the guy or girl with a $5,000 claimer, you want them to feel good because it's their Kentucky Derby. But at the same time, everything has to be balanced out properly.
Yeah, context is huge in racing and handicapping and race calling. It's hilarious. There's a great story about ripping out the earpiece. Those producers just get in the way. Am I right, John? Not ours, of course.
Of course not ours. She only props us up and makes us look good.
Exactly. I mentioned it before how you've bounced around the country a lot, and I love. This is like a perfect example for why you have such an interesting background. You have a place in Shreveport, Louisiana that is like the best place to go to. So that's one of the benefits, I think, of being in so many places and getting to see so much of the country. Can you talk kind of about the benefits, but also the downsides of that? Because you don't get to settle in and be somewhere for years at a time and build a life necessarily. Or maybe it was good. It was all good for you. How was that? What were some of the triumphs and some of the struggles of bouncing around so much?
Oh, believe me, it's something I wouldn't recommend to anybody because you're basically, I never had a real address. I used my mom's address for so long because I was always on the move, 6 months here, 3 months there. So I got started in 1996 after some guest appearances at Hollywood Park. I got the job at Hialeah, which was an incredible experience and opportunity. At the time, I had a full-time job in ad sales. I was selling advertising on the back of the cash register receipts for a company called Register Tape International. And by a long situation, not to bore you, but I moved across the country from California. I sold my Mustang for $6,000, and I went and took a job in 1994 with a company called ICN, which was a company based in Delray Beach, Florida, one of the most beautiful places in the world. And I took a job there to work for something called the National Race Line. And the National Race Line was the old 900 number before we had the internet, before race results were easy to get. You would call, and like the Racing Form had a version of it called Trackline. It was all the same program, and various places had different numbers that all led back to the same program, so to speak, kind of like a white label. And I moved there, and my friends let me stay with them in Miami Beach. I rented a car in West Palm, and I went to work there because I thought that maybe if I went to work for a result line, I had called once at Hollywood Park at this point in my life. If I went to work for them, maybe they have like relationships with racetracks. I was very naive thinking about this idea. It was the dumbest idea of all time, but it turned out to help me get my career started. After a few weeks, I realized I was working part-time and my hourly wage was in single digits. And you can imagine, as I said to my friends, I couldn't even afford to freeload off my friends who were allowing me to sleep on their couch in Miami Beach. It was a classic time in my life. But I did it because I was pursuing the dream that I always wanted. And as a result of being in Delray Beach, after a few weeks, I knew I couldn't do it anymore because my car, how about this? my car, I was renting this Ford LTD. And I mean, if you were driving, like smoke was coming out. It was like a cartoon. It was ridiculous. And one day on the way home, right on the, like when you go down 95 to I-90, 195 going towards the beach, the car like, and the next thing you know, it's like, I had to pull over on the side of the road and the car was dead. Some guy gave me a ride. I can't believe I got in that car, but I did. That was another not wise move, but I felt like it was okay.
Something a pattern here.
What was that?
Something a pattern here, Frank. Not wise moves that have actually worked out.
Living on the edge. Living on the edge. Cue up Aerosmith. So anyhow, so I had violated the terms of my rental agreement. They came and scooped up their car, kept my deposit, and now I was carless. So I used public transportation to go for a while. Anyway, eventually, the whole point of that long story was to let you know that I moved to Jacksonville and reunited with the company I was selling ads for in California. Well, with that move, I ended up being promoted to sales manager. I had a really good job, which I quit to work 6 weeks at Hialeah, or less than whatever it was 60 days. So 2 months at Hialeah. I quit my really good job because I had built up that territory of Jacksonville, North Florida, South Georgia. I went to Hialeah. So from Hialeah, I ended up going straight from there to the Downs at Santa Fe. From there, I went to like Atticad Park, Bluegrass Downs, et cetera. They were very small jobs, little by little, and that filled up 96. 97, I went back to Hialeah, and then I got the job at the Great Barrington Fair, which was the first time I ever came to Saratoga. And as time went on, I started getting other opportunities. So that part was tough. I mean, I remember staying at the Ramada Limited and remembering that's why they call it Limited. And then I went, a big break for me was to get the job at Louisiana Downs because Hialeah ran March 17th to May 22nd. Louisiana Downs started in June to November. It kind of gave me a little bit of a circuit. And so I had and then when Hialeah closed in 2001, I had that job at Louisiana Downs. They gave me a year-round job. That kept me going. But I always had the opportunity to sell advertising as kind of a crutch. I used to tell people I sell advertising to support my announcing habit because I loved announcing so much. And I wouldn't have been able to do it without a secondary income because there are such limited jobs. And so after Louisiana Downs, the following year, I went to work for the California Fairs. And that changed my whole life because I was back in California now. I'm calling races in California. I got an opportunity to go on TVG, and I ended up working for them for 9 years. And that was huge, too, because you get more exposure. I worked at Turf Paradise during that time. So, yes, it was fun, but it was a tough life because, like I said, you don't have that stability of being in one place. And it took a long time for that to develop. Even about 10 years ago when I got the Oaklawn job, and I got the Monmouth job a few years later. That's as good a circuit as you could ever hope for, Oaklawn and Monmouth. That still wasn't year-round. So I'm living 4 months in Arkansas. I'm living 3 months in New Jersey. Where are you the other month? So these kind of things are very difficult. But I'm so happy I did it. And I would have been happy I did it just by getting Santa Anita eventually because that was my dream. And so to know now that I can look back, like if you look at a horse's past performances, if I look back at the past performances of my race calling career, I'm just so happy about all the time that as a kid, I bugged all my friends to take me to the races. Every Saturday, I begged my dad to take me. And then these jobs that I took because I just wanted to get better and I wanted to work and I wanted to pursue my dream. And I feel like I've always given my passion to the sport and it has paid off. And so, for this opportunity to present itself on top of Santa Anita, I'm very grateful every day. And I also take my work very seriously. So I'm out there and I realize the pressure is really on right now, but I thrive on that. I love a challenge. There's nothing quite like it.
Yeah. And Frank, as a native Californian, born and raised, as you say, what were your initial thoughts when you heard that Golden Gate was closing?
I was very sad. Who could be happy about that? Golden Gate Fields is a beautiful place. I worked there for 2 years. I worked on that circuit for 9 years on the California Fairs beforehand. And it's a very unfortunate situation. So I'm sad for the closing of Golden Gate. If I said anything other than that, it would be a fictitious report. At the same time, I worked for First Racing and the Stronach Group, and this is what they felt was the best course of action. I'm a company man, and so they're hopeful in the statement that was issued that this is going to bolster and enhance the Santa Anita program and perhaps give us more dates and be able to put on a product that is, something that we can run more dates and maybe more days a week, which is important because ultimately we have to be in a position of strength in order to keep on rolling. California has a huge disadvantage. People like to take shots at California racing a lot. They don't understand that the other states have opportunities for purse infusions through alternative gaming and other measures that California does not have. And in the end, they always, the famous thing is my great friend Larry Letterman, most entertaining announcer of all time, always says, the answer is money. What's the question? Well, when Barnes leave and they go to somewhere else for more money, it puts pressure in the situation. Santa Anita is the great race place. I've always referred to it as the greatest race place. But in the end, we have to do the company has made a decision, and I'm just hoping that this thing works out the exact way that the company intends.
Yeah, I mean it's a tricky thing because, like you said, it didn't have the person infusion of gaming, and we had this conversation last week on the show, just talking about contraction and consolidation in racing more generally. There are a lot of tracks that I think that are just skating by because of that gaming revenue, and they're putting out a product that is just unacceptable and unbettable. But let's talk a little racing. Big Saturday at your old stomping grounds, one of your many old stomping grounds, Monmouth Park. Haskell was a very fun card. I thought it was a kind of a feel good winner and go Rocket Ride. I think Richard Mandel is one of the good guys in racing. It's always fun to see him take on the East Coast horses and win. Let's just talk a little bit about Haskell Day in general. Like, what do you remember about that day? You've obviously been to pretty much every single track and called most tracks. What is Haskell Day like down by the Jersey Shore for anyone who hasn't been?
Somewhere you need to get to is what you need to do to experience that. I called 8 of them, and I'm so grateful for every one of them and the experience at Monmouth Park, not only on Haskell Day, but any day of the week. That place is a beautiful racetrack. It's a place where even on my 8th year of working, I was basically a rookie in that place. Everyone's been there for a long, long time. It's a team. It's a family. And I will tell you that it's a place that treated me with the utmost level of respect. And they really, the most easygoing people in the world. I worked I worked primarily under Billy Knopf and, of course, Bill Anderson, John Himes, racing secretary. Bob Kalina hired me. He was the president at that time. And I remember one of his famous lines. He used to say to me, "We sell bets. That's what we do," which is a great line. At least he understood where the money came from. And, of course, Dennis Drazen, the chairman of Derby Development, was just very kind to me. Those people were great. And going to Haskell Day is one of the great days on the racing calendar. And certainly I enjoyed every bit of it. The year of the pandemic, when we had to delay the post time, was the day that, because it was so hot outside and we were determined to run that card.
Yep.
My friend Brian Skirka, who's the head of marketing over there, and I know that Brian and I really had a great post Haskell Day celebration, just kind of like brothers, like working together, and how proud we were to be able to put on the show because he did such a great job with the marketing over there and getting the people involved. Tom Lucci and publicity, just everything about that whole team at Monmouth Park. The stewards are super cool. And it's just a place, the thing about Monmouth, you open the windows and so you're out there, you can feel the air of the Jersey Shore, fresh air. If it's raining, you get hit in the face with rain during the race call. That's a place. Joe Montano on TV, a vintage, no nonsense, coaching kids his whole life, and just a guy, like a perfect East Coast guy, like very few words, straight to the point. I miss those people, but I had to take, it's something I couldn't even think about when they came to me for Saratoga, but that was a great, great place. Dr. Angelo Chinisi literally saved my life. That's not a lot of people say you saved my life. That guy saved my life. And it's by the grace of God that I called a race wrong. In like the 7th race today, I was in so much pain. I was in a complete daze. I was having major problems, and he made me come to the hospital on that Sunday night, and it was because I messed up. And the miracle of me messing up in that race, which made him call me, because he'd already tried to take me to the hospital, but the miracle of him calling me, it was the 5 and the 9. It would be it's hard to make that mistake because it's got to be one or the other, but I still made the mistake. And he called me right after that race and he goes, "That's it. You're coming with me to the hospital." And he waited for me and drove me there. So Monmouth Park will always be beyond special to me. But going back to when I first got that job, I was so excited to be able to go there. I didn't get it in 2014. It was a monumental disappointment. I got it in 2015, a year in which I had called American Pharoah in the Rebel and in the Arkansas Derby. And then boom, I get to call him in the Haskell. And at the end of his call, I just said, the party continues. And I never thought about that, but that's what it really was with Team American Pharoah. I went to the Kentucky Derby. I was invited by the Zayat family because they liked my Arkansas Derby call so much. And he had been kind of knocking on the door to win the big race. And it was fun to be a part of that. That's something I'll never, ever forget. And my friend Lenny Mandel, who was part of that whole team, I ran into him. He was walking through the turnstile at Saratoga the other day, and I happened to be there to meet my girlfriend, and I saw him walking in, and we were just reminiscing about the experience. And the place that I'm living, I gotta show you this because it's amazing.
Go ahead.
So we rented a townhouse. Come in. This is in the kitchen. The picture, not only of American Pharoah, but you would think it would be the picture perhaps of his Belmont win. No, it's the Kentucky Derby that I was there. That's part of the decor in this thing. So you talk about the place that was the right place to come to live. A horse I got to call 3 times, so that's pretty cool. So Monmouth Park, Haskell Day is a beautiful day. Richard Mandel is a Hall of Famer for a reason. I remember early in my life reading the Daily Racing Form, the sweeps comments, and he had a maiden in there, and it said, trainer sends them fit. I love that with the apostrophe EM fit. Mandel is a great class act. And the funny thing is, I actually missed the race because we ran the Coaching Club American Oaks about a few minutes before. And I said to myself, as soon as this race is over, I'm going to go watch the Haskell. And I forgot. And that's good because I'm at work. So I missed it, and I had to watch the replay to understand what had happened. It just hit me like, oh, yeah, I missed the Haskell. And that was kind of weird for me not to even watch it. It ran after our race, but just I was kind of in the moment where it should have been, blinkers on.
Yeah. No, that's good. And Frank, you're a handicapper. So when you handicapped the Haskell, was it the result that you expected?
No. And the funny thing is, I really did. My buddy was asking me early on in the 3-year-old season. I got my buddy Touchdown Tony, who loves future books and all that kind of stuff. And I told him, I said, this Go Rocket Ride is a stone cold runner. I said, because in the Sanity, he looked done. Like he basically had no shot turning for home. Yet, if you look at the chart, he wasn't that far away at the end. He ran his eyeballs out, and I told him this is a real racehorse. That said, I mean, it's safe to say if I was involved in that race, thank goodness I wasn't, I would have taken a bath that didn't involve Mr. Bubble because I would have been all over Arabian Night. And it's because if you send a horse to the Haskell and you've won as many as Bob Baffert has, with that limited experience, without a prep race, you're probably expecting some outrageous performance. And in watching the replay, I watched it again today. I can't believe he didn't jog with that trip. I know he was wide and everything, but the fact he got there relatively easily, let the long shot go in front of him, I was very surprised that he didn't have it in the stretch, but because I think that he's immensely talented. So I would have never had Go Rocket Ride. Even though the funny part is I really did, and I'm not just saying it now in the red board thing, because I would have never suggested he would have won that race. Yeah. I would have said maybe he could be second, but I really thought that thing was nothing other than an 8-7 exacta for those who asked. Extra Anejo finishing second is the only way I saw that. I couldn't see it any other way, but good for Richard Mandela and good for those classy silks of Pin Oak Stud because I'm a big fan of that whole outfit and what Mrs. Abercrombie created over there. I got to call her Bedanken when she made her turf debut in the Marie P. DeBartolo Oaks at Louisiana Downs. And I remember saying she doesn't like the turf. She loves it. And so I've always liked those silks. Even though I did get buried on Broken Vow before the Breeders' Cup one day at Keeneland, I forgive them for that.
Yeah, I mean, they really are such a class act. And Mrs. Abercrombie and Clifford Barry, who's been the farm manager there for years and years. And Joe, I don't know if you realize it, but we were actually one of the original shareholders of Caller ID, which was one of their first stallions, umpteen million years ago. But they've had Caller ID and Broken Vow and Sky Classic and Maria's Mon all standing there. And Frank, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, there are certain people that you root against in the business, and there's certain people you root for. And this team between the trainer and the jockey and Pin Oak as the owner, I'm really happy that they hit the wire first.
Let me tell you something about Mike Smith. Okay, when Zenyatta was in the middle of her run, I don't remember what race it was, but it was very, very late. It might have been the day when St. Trinian's opened up on her and she caught her because it was at Hollywood Park. I don't remember for positive, but I'm fairly certain that was the day. I was walking in to work on TVG that day on the early shift, and some guy pulls up to me in an SUV, and he rolls down his window, and it was Mike Smith. He goes, "Hey, Frank, how you doing?" And he was just such a gentleman. I'm like, Mike Smith is stopping me to say hello. It's a moment that I'll never forget because that was a big day for him. But that's just who he is. He's a great man, a man of faith, the real deal, and a class act, and an incredible writer. They call him Money Mike for a reason, and I'm proud to call him a friend. It's hard for me to even believe sometimes, I'm suddenly an old man. I'm getting up there, but I still find it fascinating that I'm friends with people like Mike Smith and Gary Stevens, and working on the same broadcast with these people like Lafitte Pincay and Greg Wolf and these guys that are absolute pros on our show. It's just something that I have to take in every day, but I can't get carried away with that because I have my job to do as well. And this is just the way it is. But it's very strange because I grew up idolizing these guys. Other than Bill Shoemaker, Gary Stevens was always my favorite writer. And so, to see him and be able to talk to him, joke with him, and be friends with him is just, it's hard to just kind of comprehend.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things I love about racing is just kind of how accessible everyone is. It's much different from the major sports. Like, back when I was working at TDN, like I could never pick up the phone and call LeBron James and do a story on him, but I could call Mike Smith. And you're 100% right about Mike. He's one of those guys that you see on TV and you hear him in interviews and you're like, there's no way he's that nice of a guy. And then you talk to him, and you spend some time with him, and it's confirmed that he is that good of a dude. So that's one of the things I love about racing. You're a very accessible guy, Frank, and a very nice guy as well. I have a selfish question for you, although maybe it's not that selfish, because I'm sure there are some other people out there who are spending time at Del Mar for the first time. I'm going out there tomorrow. First time ever at Del Mar. I know Santa Anita is more your stomping ground, so feel free to throw in some Santa Anita recommendations too. But do you have anything at Del Mar that I have to do while I'm out there?
Well, first of all, you got to go to the beach because it's part of the whole experience. If you look at the Del Mar signal when the day starts, it's on the Pacific Ocean. So what I would recommend is to take a walk on the beach on the sand before you get there. Or get up early and go enjoy that. And then at Del Mar, there's really no instruction. You got to stop by and see my man, Tom Quigley at Quigley's Corner. That's where Quigley's Corner was birthed, right by the paddock. It's a kind of an area. It's a social gathering. You'll run into trainers there. You'll run into people. Get into the paddock a little bit, enjoy the surroundings. Del Mar is a tremendous venue and a great place. And if you get a chance, go up and see the greatest who ever called a race, Trevor Denman, and go meet him in the booth. And when you knock on the door, Trevor's not a guy that's, very out there with everybody. You knock on the door and tell him Frank Miramati sent you. You watch. That's the first guy I met in his booth in 1990. And he's very nice, and he'll give you a couple of minutes. Make sure you go see him because, they are blessed with his presence. And I know that the fans there, there's something about his voice that just makes the day so great when you're at Del Mar. But just, absorb it all. Watch from different vantage points. But you can't go wrong at Del Mar. It's a phenomenal place to hang out.
Joe, I love how Frank's first suggestion is get your pasty white ass out on the beach. Because
John, you're in your basement all day. Like, you can't say anything, man. So this last time you saw the sun. No, that's definitely on my list. Appreciate the recommendations. 2010 Vanity. The 2010 Vanity Handicap, that's when Senyatta ran down St. Trinian's. I don't know if we can afford to put the video up, but maybe when Frank's talking, we can put the video up with just no sound. Frank, we appreciate the time, man. I mean this from the bottom of my heart. I could not be happier for you. You're a special person in racing, and you've put the work in to get to where you are. Appreciate you joining us, man.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Joe. You guys are super cool, and I appreciate the time. And I feel like we could talk for the next 5 hours because I just love talking about this game, and I love enjoying the game. And I appreciate the fans. I appreciate the opportunity, and I love to meet with the people. And so thank you for allowing me this privilege to be on your show.
Absolutely.
We're going to be up there in about 2 weeks. We're going to be up there about 2 weeks, so we'll definitely be able to hopefully wrangle you out and grab a meal and talk turkey.
And I'm going to see Trevor Denman, and I'm going to ask him to do a Frank Miramati impression.
When we talk on the phone, Yeah, and it's just weird too, because I used to not to carry on too long, but I'll tell you one quick thing. When I first started announcing, so Trevor's my idol. He wrote me a recommendation letter in '94, and when I started announcing and I came back home, I made sure I never went to see him more than once a year because he's on such a pedestal. I never wanted to bother him, and now I get to talk, and whenever I talk to him, he's on one phone and his wife Robin on another phone, and we have the funniest conversations. But his favorite thing to say to me, he goes, "How's the king of Santa Anita?" And I say, Trevor, this is the pawn of Santa Anita. You are the king then, now, and forever. And we always start with a good laugh, and it's just generally a laugh-a-thon for quite some time. And it's just kind of hard to fathom talking to Trevor because I learned how to do this from just listening to his brilliance, and his brilliance inspired my career.
It's a beautiful thing, and you won't say it yourself, but you're in that echelon now, Frank. That's well-deserved.
Thank you so much.
That's it for episode 4 of Rail Talk. We had so much fun, John. I mean, we were having more fun every week on this show, and it helps when you have great guests like Frank Miramati, the new Saratoga race caller. Shout out to Frank and all of his success. We're very happy for him. Appreciate him coming on board with us. Also wanted to mention one thing before we hop out of here. John brought up that I'm deemed worthy of naming a horse, but we want to get the audience involved. We're going to put up a poll on Twitter to try to pick which horse is going to be name changed in Jamaica. If you retweet that poll, you just might get a naming opportunity of your own, and you didn't have to sit next to John Green for 5 years to do it. What a bargain, what a deal. So go check that out, vote, retweet. We'll put that up on Twitter in the near future. Thank you to Patty Wolf, our producer. Thank you to our associate producers, Anthony LaRocca, Aaliyah LaRocca, and Nathan Wilkinson. Thank you to John Green. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next week on Rail Talk.